The Great Hall floated in space like a crystal monument to power. Inside, representatives from 1,000 worlds sat in their designated chambers. The Galactic Council had maintained peace for over 3,000 years. They were proud of this fact. They reminded everyone of it constantly. Hyunwoo stood at the center of the vast room. His uniform felt heavy on his shoulders. He had served as humanity's chief diplomat for 20 years. He had negotiated treaties, resolved conflicts, and built friendships across the stars. Today, none of that mattered. Beside him, Minji clutched her data tablet so hard her knuckles turned white. She was humanity's top scientist in alien biology. For 6 months, she had been sending reports to the council. Warning reports. Reports they had ignored. Now she knew why. The chamber's lights dimmed. A hologram appeared above them, showing human space. 17 colony worlds glowed like green jewels against the black. Ships moved between them in bright lines. Orbital stations circled planets. It looked beautiful. It looked alive. Elder Veshikara rose from the high seat. The insectoid being was old even by their species' long standards. Veshikara's mandibles clicked together before speaking. The translation devices turned the clicks into words everyone could understand. Humanity has expanded too quickly, Veshikara announced. 200 years ago they had 1 world. Now they have 17. They build ships faster than they build wisdom. They terraform planets before understanding the consequences. They grow like a plague. Hyunwoo felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his face neutral. Diplomacy meant swallowing your pride. He had done it many times before. We request the right to respond to these accusations, Hyunwoo said calmly. There is nothing to respond to, Veshikara replied. We are not accusing. We are stating facts. The council has made a decision. The hologram changed. Now it showed a document with official seals from dozens of species. Containment Protocol 7. Hyunwoo had heard rumors about it, but seeing it official made his blood run cold. Veshikara read the terms aloud. Humanity must stop all expansion immediately. All colonies established in the last 50 years must be abandoned. Human military forces must be reduced by 70%. All human ship designs must be submitted for council approval. Human governments must accept council observers in their capitals. This is insane, Minji whispered. 2 billion people live on those outer colonies. We can't just abandon them. You have 1 solar cycle to comply, Veshikara continued. Refusal will result in council enforcement action. Hyunwoo stepped forward. Elder Veshikara, humanity has broken no laws. We have colonized uninhabited worlds. We have not threatened any council species. Our growth is natural for a young spacefaring civilization. A crystalline being, one of the Lemira, spoke up. Their body refracted light into rainbow patterns. Natural, perhaps, but dangerous. Young species are unpredictable. They cause chaos. The council exists to prevent chaos. We are not asking permission, Veshikara said firmly. The vote has been taken. The decision is final. You may leave now. Hyunwoo wanted to argue more. He wanted to slam his fist on the podium and demand justice. But he was a diplomat. He bowed slightly, gathered his dignity, and walked out. Minji followed him, tears of frustration in her eyes. In the shuttle back to the human embassy, neither spoke for a long time. Finally, Minji broke the silence. They never intended to listen. This was planned. They're afraid of us. Yes, Hyunwoo agreed. And fear makes civilizations do terrible things. On Earth, President Jiwon received the news at 3 in the morning. She had been expecting it, but hoping against hope it wouldn't come. She sat in her office in Seoul, staring at the holographic display that showed the council's ultimatum. Within an hour, her cabinet assembled. Some came in person. Others appeared as holograms from distant colonies. General Taiyang, the head of colonial defense, arrived first. His gray hair was messy from sleep, but his eyes were sharp and alert. We cannot comply with these demands, Taiyang said immediately. Our people won't abandon their homes, and reducing our military means we'd be defenseless. But if we refuse, they'll attack, said Foreign Minister Borum. The council controls thousands of worlds. Their combined fleet could overwhelm us in days. So we choose between slow death and fast death, Minji said bitterly. She had just arrived from the spaceport, still wearing her diplomatic uniform. Either we submit and watch our civilization suffocate under council control, or we fight and get destroyed. President Jiwon listened to them argue for 2 hours. Every option seemed impossible. Compliance meant the end of human independence. Resistance meant war against overwhelming odds. There had to be another way. As dawn broke over the city, painting the sky orange and pink, Ji-won made her decision. She turned to Admiral Suhi, the commander of the Deep Space Fleet. "Is Project Exodus ready?" The room went silent. Everyone knew about Project Exodus, but they had hoped it would never be necessary. It was the doomsday plan, the last resort, the option nobody wanted to take. Suhi nodded slowly. "The generation ships are complete. We finished the last one 3 months ago. The drives have been tested. The life support systems are operational. We can begin loading within 24 hours. How many people can we evacuate?" Ji-won asked. "All of them," Suhi replied. "If we use every generation ship, every transport, every vessel capable of long-range travel, we can evacuate everyone from all 17 colonies plus 2 billion from Earth. It will take time, but we can do it." "Evacuate to where?" Borum demanded. "The Council controls all mapped space. Where can we go that they won't find us?" Suhi pulled up a star map. Most of it glowed with colors indicating Council presence or explored space. But beyond the spiral arm, past the edge of charted territory, there was darkness. "There," Suhi said, pointing to the dark region. "Unexplored space. No relay stations, no Council presence, nothing but raw stars and potential." "That's beyond the relay network," Taeyang objected. "We'd be traveling at sublight speeds for years. Maybe decades." "Yes," Ji-won said quietly. "Which means they couldn't follow us. They couldn't track us. We would simply vanish." She looked around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. They looked tired, scared, and angry. But she also saw determination. Humans had always been good at survival. They had survived ice ages and plagues, wars, and disasters. They would survive this too. "Send the signal," Ji-won ordered. "Activate Protocol Exodus. Tell every colony, every station, every human in space. We have 1 solar cycle before the Council expects our answer. We won't be here to give it. What signal should we send?" asked Communications Director Min-soo. Ji-won thought for a moment. It needed to be simple, clear, and unmistakable. Something every human would understand immediately. 2 words, she said. "Go dark." Within minutes, the message pulsed through quantum relays to every human world. On New Busan, families received alerts on their devices. On Harmony Station, alarms began to sound. On the orbital platforms around Earth, workers stopped their tasks and looked up at the command screens. Everywhere, humans read the same 2 words and understood. The galaxy had given them an ultimatum. Humanity's answer was to disappear. They would not submit. They would not fight. They would simply leave, taking everything that mattered with them and find a new home beyond the reach of those who feared them. The countdown began. 1 solar cycle. 365 days to evacuate billions of people, dismantle a civilization, and vanish into the unknown. It seemed impossible. Humans had done impossible things before. The Council expected war. They prepared their fleets, positioned warships near human borders, and readied invasion forces. Elder Veshkara personally commanded the operation from the Nexus station. 300 days remained in the ultimatum. Surely humanity would respond soon with threats or pleas for negotiation. Instead, silence. On day 320, the first human colony stopped responding to communications. New Busan, a thriving world of 9 million people, simply went quiet. All transmissions ceased. The quantum relay connecting them to the galactic network went offline. Trade ships scheduled to dock there found empty orbital stations. Veshkara assumed it was a technical failure. Equipment broke sometimes. But then New Jeju went silent. Then Harmony Station. Then 3 more colonies in rapid succession. Within 10 days, all 17 human worlds had gone dark. Lyra volunteered to investigate. She was a Lumira, a being made of living crystal that processed information through light patterns. She had studied human culture for years and found it fascinating. She commanded a small task force of 6 ships to investigate the silence. They arrived at New Busan first. The orbital stations floated peacefully in space, all lights on, all systems functioning, but no life signs, no responses to hails. Landing parties descended to the planet's surface, to the capital city that humans had named Hyundai. What they found confused everyone. The city was intact. Streets clean, buildings undamaged, power still running, but completely empty of people. In the central market, fresh food sat on vendor stalls. In homes, beds were made neatly. In schools, lessons remained written on boards. Children's toys lay in parks as if kids had just set them down moments ago. "Where did they go?" asked Lieutenant Tekra of Rakesh soldier. "There are no bodies, no signs of struggle, no damage. They just left." Lyra moved through the city, her crystalline form reflecting the afternoon sun into rainbow patterns. She entered an apartment building and found a family's home. Pictures on the walls showed smiling humans. A calendar on the kitchen wall had appointments marked for next month. A coffee cup sat on a table still half full. They left everything, Lyra observed. Their possessions, their homes, their infrastructure. This wasn't an evacuation. This was abandonment. The task force checked the planetary data centers. The last logged entry was 3 days before the silence began. A simple agricultural report about grain harvests. Nothing unusual, no warnings, no signs of crisis. The entire population had simply vanished between that report and the next scheduled one. They visited the spaceport. Every hangar was empty. No ships remained, not even maintenance vehicles or emergency shuttles. The humans had taken their transportation, but left everything else untouched. Lyra's team investigated all 17 colonies over the next month. The pattern repeated everywhere. Populations gone, cities intact, no explanations. On Harmony Station, they found coffee cups still warm in break rooms. On New Jeju, children's bicycles leaned against walls. On Dawnrise Colony, a birthday cake sat on a table with candles ready to light. Admiral Suhi's flagship, the Dauntless, orbited New Seoul but was completely empty. The ship's systems were active. Weapons powered down safely, but the entire crew had vanished. In the captain's quarters, Lyra found a handwritten note tucked into a book. It said simply, "We choose freedom over chains. Don't look for us." Lyra reported her findings to the council. She stood in the same chamber where Hyunwoo had stood months earlier. "They evacuated," she explained. "Every human from every colony simply left. Billions of people coordinated a complete withdrawal in perfect silence." "Impossible," Veshkara declared. "Where did they go?" "Our sensors would detect fleet movements. The relay network would show their hyperspace signatures. You cannot hide billions of people." "Yet they did," Lyra replied. Her light patterns showed confusion and a hint of admiration. "They left their homes, their cities, their infrastructure. They took only their people and their ships. This wasn't retreat. This was a statement." The council debated for days. Some members wanted to increase the search. Others suggested waiting for humanity to reveal themselves out of necessity. A few, like Kalun of the Thendril, expressed concern about the entire situation. "We forced them to choose between submission and disappearance," Kalun said, their gaseous form rippling with agitation. "They chose disappearance. What does this say about us? What have we become?" But Veshkara remained firm. "They are hiding like prey. Eventually they will need resources, trade, contact with civilization. When they emerge, we will be waiting. Double the patrols along former human borders. They cannot hide forever." On Earth's moon, inside a massive underground facility beneath the crater Tycho, engineer Minho oversaw the final phase of Project Exodus. He had been working for 30 years on this moment, hoping it would never come. Now he stood in the control room watching the last generation ship prepare for departure. The facility was huge, carved out of solid rock over decades in complete secrecy. 63 generation ships had been built here, each capable of carrying millions of people in hibernation. They didn't use the Council's relay network for faster-than-light travel. Instead, they used an experimental drive system based on different physics, one that left no detectable signature. Minho watched the holographic display showing all 63 ships. Each had departed over the past year, spaced carefully to avoid detection. Each headed in a different direction initially, then converged on a predetermined point beyond mapped space. The ships traveled at speeds slower than hyperspace but faster than conventional sublight drives. The last ship, carrying the final evacuees from Earth including President Jiwon herself, powered up its drives. Minho had volunteered to stay behind to complete the final task. He was old now, his hair completely white, his hands shaking slightly from age. But his mind was still sharp. He activated the purge protocol. All across human space, quantum relay nodes began self-destructing in coordinated sequence. Not explosively, but quietly, their cores simply burning out. Every navigation database, every star chart showing human exploration, Every record of human technology beyond what the Council already knew, all of it erased simultaneously. Decades of data vanished in minutes. The locations of the generation ships, the coordinates of their destination, the specifications of their drives, all gone. Humanity's presence in known space became a ghost story, a mystery with no answers. Minho prepared his own departure. A small fast ship waited for him in a hidden bay. It would take him years to catch up with the last generation ship, but he had time. Humans lived longer now with medical advances. He would make it. Before leaving, he programmed one final message into the facility's mainframe. It was set to broadcast in 6 months, long after he would be gone. The message would transmit once to all Council frequencies. Then the facility's reactor would safely shut down forever. He recorded the message himself, speaking in clear galactic common language. To the Galactic Council. You demanded we stop growing. You demanded we submit to your control. You demanded we become small and manageable. We could not accept this. We chose freedom over security, the unknown over subjugation. You wanted us contained. Congratulations. You will never find us again. We leave you our cities, our stations, our old technology. May you use them more wisely than you used your power over us. Humanity is gone. Do not search for us. We are beyond your reach now, building a future you cannot touch. This is our final message. Goodbye. Minho boarded his ship and launched. As he cleared the moon's gravity well, he looked back at Earth one last time. The blue planet looked as beautiful as ever, but it was no longer home. Home was wherever the generation ships had gone, wherever humanity would rebuild. He engaged his drive and disappeared into the black, following a trail only he could see, heading toward a future the Council would never witness. Behind him, the facility's lights began going dark one by one. Soon the entire complex was silent and empty, just another abandoned human structure in a system full of them. The Galactic Council had gotten what they asked for. Humanity was contained. They just hadn't realized that containing humans meant losing them entirely. 2 years had passed since humanity vanished. The Council had sent hundreds of expeditions to trace their exodus. Every lead ended in empty space. Every sensor sweep found nothing. The generation ships had used drive technology that left no trail anyone could follow. Lyra could not let go of the mystery. She had resigned from Council service 6 months after the evacuation. Now she spent her days in the abandoned colony of New Sol, which the Council had renamed Nexus 7. She had established a small museum in what used to be a human cultural center. The building still smelled faintly of humans. Lyra had learned that each species had a distinct scent. Humans smelled like salt and warmth and something she couldn't quite identify. She missed that smell. She missed the humans, though she had only known them through their abandoned belongings. Every day Lyra curated artifacts, a child's drawing of a family under 2 sons, a wedding photo from Harmony Station showing a couple surrounded by friends, Admiral Suhi's military medal, found in her quarters on the Dauntless, books, clothes, tools, toys. Each item told a story of the people who had left them behind. Other aliens began visiting her museum. At first just a few curious individuals, then more. They came from across Council space, drawn by curiosity about the vanished species. Artists studied human paintings. Musicians analyzed human songs. Philosophers debated human literature. A movement grew from these visitors. They called themselves the Remembrance. They believed humanity represented something important, something the Council had failed to understand. They studied human culture not as a dead thing, but as a question. What makes a species choose the unknown over security? In the Council chambers, frustration mounted. Elder Veshkara addressed the assembly with barely concealed anger. 2 years of searching have revealed nothing. The humans have evaded our best tracking technology. This is unacceptable. Kalen, the Thendril representative, rippled through the air like smoke-forming shapes. Perhaps the question is not where they went, but why we are so desperate to find them. They left peacefully. They took nothing but themselves. Why do we pursue them? They defied Council authority, Veshkara snapped. There must be consequences. The consequence is that they are gone, Kalen replied. Is that not enough? But Veshkara pushed forward with a new proposal. The 17 abandoned human colonies would be repurposed for Council use. Multiple species could settle there, make use of the infrastructure, turn these ghost worlds into living civilizations again. The motion passed despite objections from the Remembrance members. and some younger council species. Within months, colonists began arriving at former human worlds. Frakesh hive clusters settled on New Busan. Lumira light gardens were established on New Jeju. Mixed species communities took over Harmony Station. But living in human spaces felt wrong to many settlers. The cities were built for human proportions. Doorways too small for some species, too large for others. Streets laid out in patterns that made sense to human psychology, but confused alien minds. Gardens planted with earth flora that seemed beautiful but alien. Children's toys in storage rooms. Family photos still on walls in empty apartments. Schools with small desks arranged in rows. It was like living in a tomb, surrounded by ghosts of the departed. Meanwhile, far beyond charted space, humanity was rebuilding. The 63 generation ships had traveled for 2 years, finally reaching their destination. They emerged from their faster-than-light journey near an unremarkable yellow star, in a region the Council had never explored. Captain Deho commanded the lead vessel, Resilience. He stood on the bridge looking at the sensor displays showing the new solar system. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear but from hope. Behind him, his crew watched in silence. Initial scan complete, reported Navigation Officer Junho. 4 terrestrial planets, 2 in the habitable zone. No intelligent life detected. No council markers or relay stations. The system is pristine. Deho allowed himself a smile. Send the signal to the fleet. We found our new home. Begin surveying operations immediately. They named the system New Haven. The 2 habitable planets became Sebyol and Mirai, meaning New Dawn and Future in Korean. Within weeks, construction began. Orbital stations formed in space. Mining ships attacked asteroid belts for resources. Survey teams mapped the planets surface by surface. Dr. Yuna led the scientific teams. She had been young when humanity evacuated, barely out of university. Now she was humanity's chief xenobiologist, a position previously held by Minji. She stood on the surface of Sebyol, breathing air through a filter mask, looking at an alien landscape that would become home. The sky was purple instead of blue. The grass equivalent was orange rather than green. Strange bird-like creatures flew overhead, calling in voices unlike Earth birds. Everything was alien. Everything was different. Everything was theirs. We need to build differently this time, Yuna said to the construction coordinator standing beside her. The Council found us once because we built like we did on Earth. Loud, obvious, easy to detect. Here we build smart, stealth technology in every structure. Encrypted communications only. We build a civilization designed to be invisible. The coordinator nodded. Already in the plans. Every building will have radar-dampening materials. Every ship will have stealth capabilities. Every transmission will be quantum encrypted. If the Council ever looks this direction, they'll see nothing but empty space. Months turned into a year. New Haven space grew rapidly. 37 colonies spread across 12 systems surrounding the original settlement. The generation ships were dismantled, their materials repurposed into stations and habitats. 8 billion humans now called this region of space home. On Sebyol, teacher Yunji stood before a classroom of children. Most had been born during the journey, in the hibernation pods or in the brief periods when the ships woke passengers for maintenance cycles. These children had never seen Earth. They had no memory of the Council or why humanity left. This is your home, Yunji told them, gesturing to the window showing the purple sky. You were born free in ships traveling between stars. You will grow up free on worlds no one controls but us. Your parents sacrificed everything to give you this freedom. Never forget that. A small girl raised her hand. Teacher Unji, why did we have to leave the old place? Yunji knelt down to the girl's level. Because sometimes, to stay who you are, you have to leave where you were. We'll talk more about this when you're older. For now, just know that you're safe here. You're home. Back in Council space, Lyra made a breakthrough. She had spent 2 years analyzing gravitational data from the time of humanity's disappearance. Tiny fluctuations in space-time, barely detectable, forming patterns that suggested massive vessels moving through deep space. She plotted the patterns on a star map. The trails all led in the same general direction, away from Council space toward the unexplored regions beyond the galactic arm's edge. The humans hadn't hidden in known space. They had left it entirely. Lyra presented her findings to the Council. She stood before the same assembly that had condemned humanity 2 years earlier. They're not hiding in our territory. They're beyond our borders in regions we've never explored. They traveled to places we don't control. Veshkara studied her data with multiple eyes. That region is beyond the relay network. They would be isolated, cut off from galactic civilization. No species could thrive in such conditions. Unless that was exactly what they wanted, Lyra replied. Her crystalline form pulsed with patterns of realization. They didn't want to be part of our civilization. They wanted their own, so they went somewhere we couldn't follow. Then they are no longer our concern, Veshkara declared. Let them rot in isolation. The Council will not waste more resources searching for them. But Lyra knew the truth. Humanity wasn't rotting. They were growing, building, thriving in places the Council couldn't reach. And somehow, that knowledge filled her with something she hadn't expected to feel about the situation. Hope. A decade had passed since humanity disappeared. In Council space, the 17 former human colonies were now fully inhabited by various alien species. Millions of Rakesh, Lumira, Thendril, and others lived in cities built by human hands. But the settlements never felt quite right to their new inhabitants. Lyra had expanded her museum significantly. What started as a small cultural center had grown into a massive complex covering several city blocks of Nexus 7, the colony formerly called New Sol. Thousands of artifacts filled the halls. Human art, literature, technology, personal items, each piece carefully preserved and documented. She walked through the exhibits daily, adding new items, rearranging displays, writing descriptions. A Rakesh couple stood before a holographic recreation of a human wedding. A Lumira artist studied human paintings, trying to understand the use of color and emotion. A group of young Thendril students listened to recordings of human music, their gaseous forms rippling in patterns that suggested fascination. The remembrance had grown from a small movement into a significant cultural force. Thousands of aliens across Council space now studied human culture, philosophy, and history. They held conferences, published papers, created art inspired by human work. To them, humanity represented a question that haunted the galaxy. What drives a species to choose freedom over survival? But not everyone appreciated the remembrance. Elder Veshkara viewed them with suspicion. In a council session, the elder addressed the chamber with frustration. These remembrance members worship a species that defied our authority. They romanticize rebellion. This is dangerous, Kaelin responded with unusual firmness. They don't worship rebellion. They study a civilization that valued freedom above all else. Perhaps we should be asking why that idea appeals to so many of our citizens. In New Haven space, humanity had transformed dramatically. 37 colonies across 12 systems now housed 8 billion people. They had developed new technologies in isolation, advancing without council oversight or restrictions. Improved drive systems, quantum computers far beyond council sophistication, medical treatments that extended human lifespans to 2 centuries. Governor Soyan administered the colony of Jangmi, a thriving world of gleaming cities and vast agricultural zones. She stood on a platform overlooking the capital city, addressing a crowd gathered to celebrate the 10th anniversary of settlement. 10 years ago, we arrived in this system with nothing but hope and determination, Soyan said, her voice carrying across the plaza through speakers. We left behind homes, possessions, a civilization our ancestors built over centuries. But we gained something more valuable. We gained freedom. The freedom to grow at our own pace. The freedom to make our own decisions. The freedom to build a future without asking permission from beings who feared our potential. The crowd cheered, but not everyone was satisfied with the isolation. In the back of the crowd, young engineer Dongyun listened with mixed feelings. He had been born during the Exodus, in the hibernation pods of a generation ship. He had never seen Earth or the old colonies. To him, the council was just a story, something from history. After the ceremony, Dongyun attended a meeting of a group that called themselves the Returners. About 50 young humans gathered in a community center. Most were born during or after the Exodus. They had grown up hearing stories about how humanity fled, how they abandoned everything to hide from the council. We have superior technology now, Dongyun argued passionately. Our ships are faster, our weapons more advanced, our computers smarter. Why are we still hiding? We could go back and show them they were wrong about us. Show them we're not the threat they imagined. An older woman named Hyejin shook her head. She had been young during the evacuation but remembered it clearly. You don't understand what it was like. The council didn't just threaten us. They tried to erase us as a growing civilization. They wanted us small, manageable, controlled. Going back means inviting that interference again. But we're stronger now, a young man named Cheol insisted. They couldn't push us around anymore. We could negotiate from a position of strength. Or we could stay free, Yejin countered. Out here we write our own destiny. That's worth more than proving a point to the council. The debate raged for hours. The returners were growing in number, especially among the young. They questioned the policy of total isolation. Some colonies leaned toward eventually making contact with the council, while others wanted to maintain the silence forever. The issue became urgent when Colonial Defense detected something concerning. Probe operator Kyung-soo worked in a monitoring station on the edge of New Haven space. His job was to watch for any signs of council activity moving toward their region. His screen suddenly lit up with contacts. Council survey ships, a dozen of them, moving in a pattern that would bring them toward New Haven space. They were still thousands of light years away, moving slowly, but the trajectory was clear. Eventually, they would stumble into human territory. Kyung-soo immediately contacted Colonial Defense Command. General Taeyang, grandson of the original general who had helped plan the exodus, reviewed the data with concern. How long before they reach our border? At their current speed, 5 years, Kyung-soo reported. Maybe 6. But sir, they're spreading out in a search pattern. They're looking for something. Taeyang brought the issue to President Hana, daughter of the late President Ji-won who had died peacefully 5 years earlier. Hana sat in her office on Sebyol, studying the projections. They're going to find us eventually. The galaxy is large but not infinite. We always knew this day might come. So what do we do? Taeyang asked. Do we prepare for contact? For conflict? Or do we run again? Hana didn't answer immediately. She looked out her window at the city below. Children played in parks. People walked to work. Families lived normal lives, unaware that the council was slowly moving toward discovering their hidden civilization. We can't run again, Hana said finally. We built something here. 37 colonies, 8 billion people, a working civilization. We can't just abandon it and disappear again. Besides, where would we go? Eventually, we run out of unexplored space. Then we prepare for contact, Taeyang concluded, but on our terms, not theirs. Hana convened her advisors. The debate mirrored the arguments happening across human space. Some advocated for aggressive defense, showing the council that humanity was strong now. Others suggested continued stealth, hiding even as the council drew closer. A few even agreed with the returners, suggesting proactive contact to control the narrative. Elder Hyun-woo attended the meeting. He was ancient now, well over a century old even with medical advances. He had been the original diplomat who faced the council's ultimatum. He rarely spoke in meetings anymore, but when he did, people listened. The council will find us eventually, Hyun-woo said, his voice weak but clear. When they do, we have one chance to show them we're not the threat they imagined. We must meet them with strength but not aggression, with openness but not submission. We must show them that freedom made us better, not dangerous. Meanwhile, in council space, Lyra received an unexpected visitor at her museum. Kalen materialized in the main hall, their gaseous form coalescing into a vaguely humanoid shape. I've been studying human history extensively, Kalen said, reading their books, watching their recordings, trying to understand them. I've reached a troubling conclusion. What conclusion? Lyra asked. That they were never the threat we claimed them to be. They were simply young, energetic, growing rapidly as all young civilizations do. We destroyed their development out of fear. Fear of change, fear of competition, fear of something we didn't control. Lyra showed Kalen through the exhibits, holographic displays of human achievements in art, science, philosophy, engineering, music from dozens of human cultures, literature spanning centuries, medical advances, technological innovations, the full scope of what humanity had been before they disappeared. They were becoming something remarkable, Lyra said softly, and we tried to stop that. What does that make us? Kalen rippled with what might have been regret in their species. Tyrants. Well-meaning perhaps, but tyrants nonetheless. We chose control over growth, stagnation over change. The humans chose freedom over security. Which of us was right? Neither had an answer. They stood in silence in the museum, surrounded by the artifacts of a vanished civilization, while somewhere beyond the edge of known space, that same civilization prepared for the moment when hiding would no longer be possible. 15 years after humanity vanished, a Council survey ship called Endeavor's light detected something unusual. The ship's sensors picked up quantum signatures in a region of space that was supposed to be empty. Signatures that matched archived human technology patterns. Commander Tekshir, a young Vrkesh officer eager to prove himself, immediately reported the finding to the Nexus station. Within hours, the news spread through council chambers. They had found humanity. Or at least they had found evidence that humanity existed somewhere in that unexplored region. Elder Veshkara, now even more ancient than before, assembled a task force, 300 ships from various council species, enough firepower to conquer a small empire. Veshkara commanded the operation personally from the flagship. 15 years of searching had finally paid off. Lyra heard the news through her remembrance contacts. She rushed to the Nexus station, her crystalline form pulsing with urgent light patterns. She burst into the council chamber without ceremony. "If you found them, you must approach with peace," Lyra pleaded. "Don't repeat the mistakes that drove them away in the first place." They left to avoid conflict. "Don't bring conflict to them now." Veshkara looked at her with multiple eyes that showed no sympathy. "They defied council law. They abandoned their responsibilities to galactic civilization. They will answer for these crimes." "They committed no crimes," Lyra argued. "They simply chose to leave." "That is not illegal." "They harmed no one. They took only themselves. What law did they break by seeking freedom?" But Veshkara had made the decision already. The task force launched within days, heading toward the coordinates where Endeavor's light had detected the signatures. It would take weeks to reach the region. Veshkara spent that time preparing speeches, demands, ultimatums. The task force emerged from hyperspace at the edge of New Haven territory. Immediately their sensors lit up. Orbital stations, planetary colonies, ship traffic, energy signatures indicating a thriving civilization spread across multiple systems. Humanity hadn't just survived. They had flourished. What the Council didn't see were the hundreds of defense satellites scattered throughout the system, all in stealth mode, or the defense fleet waiting just beyond sensor range, or the weapon platforms hidden in asteroid belts. Humanity had 15 years to prepare for this moment. A human patrol fleet appeared, seemingly from nowhere. Sleek vessels with design aesthetics completely different from what the Council remembered. These ships looked predatory, efficient, deadly. 20 warships formed a line between the Council fleet and the inner system. The lead ship transmitted a message. "You are entering sovereign human space. State your intentions." Admiral Jawan commanded the patrol fleet from his flagship Defiance. He was young, born after the Exodus, trained in military academies built on Sabiel. He had studied the Council species extensively, but never actually met one. Now he faced 300 of their warships with only 20 of his own. His hands were steady on the armrests of his command chair. His crew watched him calmly, trusting his judgment. They had trained for this scenario 1,000 times. Veshkara responded personally. "This is Elder Veshkara of the Galactic Council. Humanity abandoned Council space 15 years ago without permission. You are commanded to surrender your vessels immediately and submit to Council authority. You have 1 hour to comply." J1 smiled slightly. His tactical officer raised an eyebrow. "Permission to respond, sir?" "Granted," J1 said. He opened a channel to the Council flagship. "Elder Veshkara, I am Admiral J1 of the New Haven Defense Force. We left Council space 15 years ago. We established our civilization in unclaimed territory, beyond your jurisdiction. We have no quarrel with the Council, but we will not submit to your authority. This is our space. You are the intruders here." "You cannot defy the Council with 20 ships," Veshkara replied. "You're correct. I cannot defy you with 20 ships," J1 agreed. "Fortunately, I have more than 20. The space around the Council fleet suddenly filled with contacts. Ships dropped their stealth fields, revealing a defense force of over 200 vessels, all with technology clearly more advanced than what humanity had possessed 15 years ago. Weapon ports opened on hidden stations, targeting sensors locked onto Council vessels. On Sabiel, President Hana received updates in real time. She sat in her command center, surrounded by advisors. General Taeyang stood at a tactical display, monitoring ship positions. Elder Hyunwoo sat in a corner watching quietly. His presence was symbolic, representing the continuity from the original Exodus to this moment. They outnumber us, Taeyang observed. 300 to 200. But our technology is superior. If it comes to combat, we'll win, but casualties will be significant on both sides. It cannot come to combat, Hana said firmly. Violence will only justify their fears about us. We must find another way. She made a decision that surprised everyone. She ordered Admiral Jaewon to hold position and not fire under any circumstances. Then she prepared a shuttle with a single passenger, someone whose presence might change everything. Hyunwoo stood with difficulty, his aged body protesting. It should be me, he said quietly. I was there at the beginning. I should be there for this moment too. You're too old for this, Hana protested. The journey alone could kill you. Then I'll die doing something meaningful, Hyunwoo replied with a thin smile. Besides, I'm the only human alive who actually met Veshkara face to face. That means something. The shuttle launched from Saebyul, passed through the standoff and approached the council flagship. Veshkara, surprised by this move, granted permission to dock. Hyunwoo walked slowly through the corridors, his movements stiff but dignified. A Vrikesh honor guard escorted him to the command chamber. Veshkara stared at the old human. 15 years had aged Hyunwoo dramatically. He looked frail, his skin wrinkled, his hair completely white, but his eyes still held sharp intelligence. You, Veshkara said with recognition. You were the diplomat. You stood before the council 15 years ago. I did, Hyunwoo confirmed. And you told us to stop growing, to submit to your control, to become small and manageable. So we made a choice, we left. We found empty space, unclaimed systems, territory you had never explored. We built a new civilization here beyond your borders, harming no one. You defied the council's authority, Veshkara insisted. We left your authority, Hyunwoo corrected. There is a difference. Tell me, Elder. What law prevents a species from peacefully emigrating beyond your jurisdiction? What rule states that all civilizations must remain under council control forever? Veshkara had no answer. There was no such law because no one had ever done what humanity did. Most species either complied with council rules or fought against them. Humanity had chosen a third option. They simply left. You violated the spirit of council law, Veshkara tried. The spirit of freedom? Hyunwoo asked. The right of self-determination? Aren't those the principles the council claims to protect? You gave us an ultimatum, submit or face destruction. We chose neither. We chose to leave peacefully and build elsewhere. And now you come here with 300 warships to punish us for that choice. Tell me, Elder, who is the lawbreaker here? Before Veshkara could respond, another ship arrived in the system. Lyra's personal vessel, flying the banner of the Remembrance. She transmitted to both fleets simultaneously. I am Lyra of the Remembrance movement. I have spent 15 years studying humanity, learning their culture, understanding their history. I speak now to both sides. The council made a mistake 15 years ago. We tried to control a young species out of fear. They responded by leaving peacefully, harming no one, taking only themselves. If we attack them today, we prove we were never the protectors we claimed to be. We become conquerors, tyrants, exactly what we always said we stood against. Her transmission was broadcast across council space through quantum relays. Billions watched the standoff in real time. The Remembrance had grown large enough that its voice mattered. Other council species, younger ones who had studied humanity through Lyra's museum, began voicing support for the human position. The Lumira delegation recalled their ships from Veshkara's fleet. Then the Thendril, led by Kalen, did the same. More species withdrew one by one. What had been a fleet of 300 dwindled to less than 50, mostly Vrikesh vessels loyal to Veshkara personally. The Elder realized the situation had changed. Public opinion had turned against the operation. The council was divided, and the humans showed no fear, only determination to defend what they had built. You cannot enforce your will here, Hyunwoo said quietly. You are too far from your territory, facing a species that has proven it would rather disappear than submit. You can attack us and perhaps you will win, but what will you gain? Dead humans and destroyed colonies? Or you can acknowledge reality. We are free, we are sovereign, and we are beyond your control. Negotiations began. President Hana insisted on direct talks, not ultimatums. She traveled to the council flagship herself, accompanied by advisors. For 3 days they debated, argued, compromised. The final treaty was simple. Humanity would maintain minimal contact with council space. They would share certain medical and scientific discoveries, but they would remain autonomous in their region, independent of Council authority. In exchange, they agreed not to expand back into Council territory for